Hey readers, writers, and story lovers, my name is Hannah. I publish as H.S. Paisley, and today we are talking about The Field Guide to the North American Teenager by Ben Philippe. So my cousin asked me if I wanted to join her YA book club, and I was like, and she said, we're reading this book, The Field Guide to the North American Teenager, and it's by a Canadian, a black Canadian. It's about a black kid from Montreal moving to Texas, and I was like, sold! I want to start by reading you the synopsis, or at least bits and pieces of the synopsis of this book. Because okay, so Norris Kaplan is clever, cynical, and quite possibly too smart for his own good. A black French-Canadian, he knows from watching American sitcoms that those three things don't bode well when you're moving to Austin, Texas. Plucked into a new school and sweating a ridiculous amount from the oppressive Texas heat, Norris finds himself cataloging everyone he meets. The cheerleaders, the jocks, the loners, and even the manic pixie dream girl. Making a ton of friends has never been a priority for him, and this way he can at least amuse himself until it's time to go back to Canada, where he belongs. Yet, against all odds, those labels soon become actual people to Norris. Be it the loner Liam, who makes it his mission to befriend Norris, or Madison, the beta cheerleader, who is so nice that it has to be a trap. Not to mention Artie, the manic pixie dream girl, who might, in fact, be a real love interest in the making. He even starts playing actual hockey with these Texans. But the night of prom, Norris screws everything up royally. As he tries to pick up the pieces, he realizes it might be time to stop hiding behind his snarky opinions and start living his life along with the new people who have found their way into his heart. Okay, so on the surface, this is a book about a teenager who thinks he's going to live in a teen movie in the States and who gets proven wrong, right? Like, it's about tearing down stereotypes. Okay, I can read this book, but holy moly does it have problems. That synopsis was so misleading. Norris is not too smart for his own good. He thinks he's going to move to Texas and live inside a teen movie. That is not something a smart person thinks. This is a kid who's obsessed with the Habs, who loves hockey, but makes fun of jocks. This is a kid who is mean to everybody he meets, even though some of them are nothing but nice to him. Most of them, I think, were nothing but nice to him. He was an asshole to them first. And not only that, he is hella spoiled and entitled. In my book club meeting, I said that, and some people were like, I don't really think so. And I get why they think he wasn't spoiled and entitled. He's just like a teenager that had to move from Montreal to Texas and hated his life, which, like, okay, fair. But there were just some things that happened towards the end of the book, like, oh my gosh, how does this fly? You know, like, that would not have been allowed in my house growing up. This book is about stripping away stereotypes. Each chapter is kind of started with like a field guide-ish kind of thing, like location, expectation, set, like whatever, all these different things. I don't remember what they were. For me, like, the intention there is good, and the story itself was there. But the novel spent 3/4 or more of the time building up these stereotypes and then barely any time deconstructing them, which kind of defeats the purpose of the novel for me. Not only that, but the writing was not great. And I do think that maybe I could blame the editor, not the writer, for this, because the issues I had wasn't necessarily with the writing itself. Like, I can appreciate that this is a YA, that, like, the writing isn't, the prose aren't going to be phenomenal, and they don't need to be. That's not the point, and that's okay. But there were some stories that were either, like, some subplots and plot points that made no sense or were never finished, and then made characters' actions make no sense. And that was kind of frustrating for me, because there were some things that I was super interested to know, and the whole book I'm like, oh, as soon as I learn this thing, this character is going to totally make sense. And then we never learned the thing. If you have read the book, and I'm just going to talk about a few of those plot points where if you have read the book, you might know what I'm talking about, and please leave me a comment below so we can talk about what you thought in these points. If you haven't, then you can just, like, come back after you read this book if you decide to read it after I poop all over it with this rant review. So, Norris meets a group of cheerleaders, and actually the beginning of the novel was quite funny. There's a moment where he bumps into these cheerleaders and he starts making fun of them right away, which, like, okay, you're a jerk 17-year-old kid, you make fun of people, sure. And it was funny, although mean. And one of the things he said to them was like, I'm sure at least one of you guys is named Madison. How many of you guys are named Madison? And one of them was. And she thought he was kind of funny right away. He goes and applies for a job at a local restaurant. It turns out it's her family restaurant, and she gets her dad to hire him basically on the spot. Now, there's a dynamic between Madison and Meredith, who's like the top cheerleader, and Patrick, who is Madison's ex-boyfriend and Meredith's current boyfriend. And the only information we get about this is that Madison and Patrick were together for a really long time, and then Meredith, like, maybe said something to the effect of, I want your boyfriend, and Madison left the guy so he could be with Meredith. And it was just like the way she behaves through the novel to Norris and Norris's love interest Artie would be so much better understood if we understood the dynamic between Maddie, Meredith, and Patrick. But we never got the ending of that story. It was super weird. And there were a few moments where I'm like waiting for Norris to call Meredith out on how she has treated Maddie, and he never does. Another plot point that I just thought did not make any sense at all is that Norris's mom posts basically like a seeking friends ad for Norris on a college campus bulletin board. What? Like on a community center bulletin board? Sure. On a high school bulletin board? Okay. But a college campus for your high school aged son? Like, what are you doing? And I get the intention, right? Like, look at this adult who's so out of touch, basically an alien doing this super embarrassing thing to her son. And it was funny. When we first learned this, it was very funny. But I just felt like it was so out of touch. You know, the mom is a college professor. Yeah, it's at her work. Yeah, it was easy, but that's not the purpose of posting this notice. She wants her son to have friends, so why would she post it on a college campus? Just made absolutely no sense to me. This is an intelligent woman. Why would she do that? The last thing that really bugged me was Norris and his father and the stepmother. And the stepmother was very one-dimensional and a background character and just like very clearly not wanting Norris around. The father lived in Vancouver. And I get that, okay, you don't have to develop everybody super well. Through the entire novel, there is a theme that Norris wants to have a better relationship with his dad. But then when the opportunity presents itself for him to spend an entire summer living with his dad, he bails at the last moment for a bunch of people he met a few months ago. And it's just like, what the heck is happening here? There was also some stuff at the end of the book when like characters are not taking responsibility for their behavior and other characters are apologizing for it. And it was just, it felt like a hot mess. It felt like I have this goal to deconstruct these stereotypes. Look at these stereotypes. Look at this archetype of a cheerleader, of a jock, of a whatever. And I'm going to use this black kid who's received a lot of persecution, especially on the ice while playing hockey, and use this to show us that no one is just one thing. And it kind of did that. But when you spend 75 to 85% of the novel building up the stereotype and only 15% tearing it down, I think you're having the opposite effect. All in all, I felt that The Field Guide to the North American Teenager was a solid book with a crappy ending. And had the last third of the book been a little bit different, or even the last 20 pages, I mean, I listened to it, so I'm guesstimating 20 pages, been a little bit different, been a little bit more in depth, like dug deeper into Norris understanding that his stereotyping was wrong and what was wrong about it, this would have been a 4-star read. But instead, Ben Philippe and the Guide to the North American Teenager, 2 stars. Anyways, that's my rant review. Oh my gosh. I mean, maybe YA is just not for me. I think I need to read more new adult, which is an issue since I've just joined a young adult book club. But anyways, have you read The Field Guide to the North American Teenager? What did you think? Let me know in the comments section if you are looking for an adult fantasy read. These ones are mine. Magic Required and Dominion Required. Both stories follow a Celtic demigod named Lachlan Ilil as he tries to seek a redemption he is not sure he deserves. The first one is set in 2047. The second one picks up about 6 weeks after the first one leaves off. And I am working on my third third novel now, so far untitled. The main character's name is Dyson. She is a vampire going to school in India, and she makes friends with Lachlan along the way. So this novel is set a few years before magic required. If you are a writer and you have any topics that you would like me to cover in one of my writing videos, please pop that in the comment section to let me know. And as always, I hope you're all happy, healthy, and hydrated. So go get something to drink. If you're not, you're probably dehydrated.